There's this moment in Destination Moon where one of the characters turns around and says this: "We will never get there if we wait for permission." That is the ethos, not just of this film, but of an entire era. This isn't a story about conquest, this is a story about courage, about building something nobody has ever built, and doing it not because it's safe, not because it's profitable, but because it's necessary. Before Gagarin, before Armstrong, there was this film. Before we move on any further though, please remember that this is just my personal view. What follows is how I see it, based on what I know, what I've read and what I reckon. If you disagree, fair play. Just let me know in the comments section. This channel is about ideas, not dogma. So, Destination Moon came out in 1950. That's 7 years before Sputnik and a full 20 years before Apollo 11. And yet somehow it's got the balls to turn around and say, this is how we get to the moon. Just thrusters, pressure suits and a checklist. The man behind the whole thing, George Pal. If you've been following this channel, and I hope you have, his name will already be familiar to you. Pal wasn't just cashing in on flying saucers. He was an idealist, a showman, the kind of man that didn't just want to entertain you, he wanted to inspire you. This was his first major science fiction feature. And what a way to kick things off. It was directed by Irving Peischel, not a household name, but a rock-solid craftsman, and he treats the subject matter seriously. There's no winks to the camera, no smugness. And that matters because if anybody had treated it like a joke, then the whole thing would have just collapsed. The film was co-written by Robert A. Heinlein. Yes, that Robert A. Heinlein, the man who gave us Starship Troopers. And yes, that will be getting its own video, trust me. And despite the fact that he's only a co-writer of this film, you can really feel his presence. That sense of idealism and technical detail, that stubborn boots on the ground kind of futurism, that is Heinlein all over. The rocket ship, named Luna because of course it is, was designed with the help of actual aerospace engineers. Seriously, that has got V2 written all over it. No anti-gravity, no FTL, just a rocket, vacuum sealed life support system, and a terrifyingly basic understanding of orbital mechanics. The special effects? Well, for 1950 they are astonishing. Lee Zavitz did the special effects to this film and he was taking no prisoners. Miniatures, matte paintings, and that gorgeous full-scale mock-up of the rocket, it was all beautifully lit and shot like it really mattered. So nowadays the shots of the lunar surface look a bit dated, but in 1950 this must have seemed like magic. The film won an Academy Award for Best Effects, and it wasn't a sympathy win neither. It really earned it. Not just because the special effects looked good, but because they served a story. Every flameout, every shadow on the moon's surface was there to sell the idea. This could actually happen. Destination Moon was sold as kind of a public service. There was a companion short film made called Operation Moon, which essentially frames the main film as like a preview of what's to come. Imagine that, like releasing a sci-fi blockbuster and like promoting it like it's homework for the future. That's how confident they were in it. None of the major studios was interested in this film, well, at least at first, so George Pal had to fund the film independently, out of his own pocket. He believed in it. There's something quite punk about that. Like, the suits weren't sure anybody wanted a serious space film, so Pal just went and did it anyway. The film stars John Archer as the pilot, Warner Anderson as the general, Tom Powers as the money man, and my personal favourite, Dick Wesson as Joe Sweeney, the everyman engineer. He's not the hero, he's not the boss, he's not the genius. He's the man that keeps the engine running, the man with grease on his hands and a joke in his back pocket. He's also the soul of the film. More on him later. And get this, there's this animated segment midway through the film where they actually take the time out to explain Newtonian physics using Woody Woodpecker. Yes, that Woody. Why? Well, because they knew people were going to get lost with all the physics, so they just leaned into it. They made it fun, they made it simple, and it really works. The film goes to great lengths to explain the science as it goes, and when things go wrong, it's not some bug-eyed monster, It's maths and thrust to weight ratio. These are depicted as the real problems, with real consequences. A lesser known bit of trivia about this film is that, well, it was supposed to have quite a bleak ending. Joe, the technician, was going to die. He was going to sacrifice himself to save the others. That was in the final draft of the script, but the studio just couldn't stomach it. It was too dark, it was too soon after the war, so they changed it. Joe lives, but if you watch carefully, the film still feels like they're going to go through with it. The tension is there, the nobility is there. They just don't pull the trigger. And all of this, every blueprint, every model, every set, came before Kennedy, came before NASA, came before the space race. This wasn't just speculative fiction, this was aspirational fiction. Magazines covered it, schools used it, hell, even NASA engineers loved it, because it popularised the idea that you could actually land a man on the moon. Not bad for a film that starts off with Woody Woodpecker explaining Newtonian physics. This film's the blueprint, it's the instruction manual. It's not accurate, not really, not in terms of how spaceflight actually turned out, but that don't matter, because it's not a technical forecast, it's a sales brochure, a pitch, a cinematic pamphlet for the space race, like years before the space race actually began. But here's the bit nobody ever talks about, and it's how the public took to the film. Destination Moon was a smash hit, both critically and commercially. It punched way above its weight for an independently financed film, proving that there was real money in serious science fiction. You've got to remember, this came out the same year as Rocket Ship XM, a quickie cash-in released by a rival studio. But where that film was all about melodrama and Martian analogies for the atomic bomb, Destination Moon was something else entirely. It had credibility, authority, and the public clocked that straight away. It also left its mark on the industry, because without this film we wouldn't have had When Worlds Collide, Conquest of Space, or even Forbidden Planet for that matter. It legitimised the genre, and it made the case that sci-fi didn't have to be crap, and instead of that, it could be the future. So it's often argued that Destination Moon is just a Cold War parable dressed up as a space adventure. The stakes may be orbital, but the subtext is very earthbound. America, 1950, the war's over, but the new one's already begun. And it's about ideologies this time, baby. The Soviets are building rockets, and America needs to catch up. Or better still, get ahead. And that's where the film plants its flag, literally, because our heroes land on the moon, and they claim it. Not for themselves, not even just for America, but for all mankind. A noble line, but let's be honest, it's an American flag, an American rocket, and an American future being carved out on the moon. There's no apology for that, and nor should there be, because this isn't a film about conquest. It's about urgency, it's about progress, and the need to do the thing before somebody else does it first. And that line, we'll never get there if you wait for permission, that's the heartbeat. The Cold War is never named in this film, but it hangs over every frame of it. This film is also about action without hesitation, not recklessness. Although, mind you, there is a lot of calculated risk in it. The rocket works, the science holds, the plan, whilst harebrained, is solid. That's Heinlein's influence coming through again. His brand of sci-fi was always heavy on the problem solving. No magical fixes with him, it was all clever people doing clever things with whatever crap they had laying around. And Destination Moon is full of that. Fuel constraints, weight limits, engineering problems. Nobody pulls a solution out their arse, they all have to work for it. The characters in this film reflect that ethos as well, because they're not military men, they're not on some secret mission, they're just a bunch of engineers and scientists and industrialists, people who build things and figure things out. The future in this film belongs to those with calluses on their hands and lengthy equations on their chalkboards. Even Joe, the comic relief. He's competent. He's not just there for pratfalls. He's there because the ship can't fly without him. And when the time comes for him to step up, boy does he step up. So yeah, don't get me wrong, this is propaganda. It's a love letter to American exceptionalism, but it's not dumb patriotism. It's thoughtful, it's grounded, and most of all it's practical. It doesn't just say America can do it, it says here's how. What's important to remember though is that, well, this wasn't just better than B-movie sci-fi. This was something entirely new, because in 1950 most sci-fi still looked like Flash Gordon, And don't get me wrong, I love all that stuff. But Destination Moon made a statement. It didn't just want to entertain the children on a Saturday morning. It wanted to change the way the adults thought about the future. It said space is not a fantasy. It's just an engineering problem. Just a matter of fuel, materials and willpower. That shift is massive because everything before it was just pulp. And everything after it, well, it had to take itself just a little bit more seriously. And even now, in the 21st century, 75 years after this film was made, we're not seeing escapism, we're seeing ambition. But here's the thing though, because for all of that, for all of the science and the special effects and the Cold War stuff, when you peel back the layers, Destination Moon is far more profound. This film is quietly wrestling with a much bigger question. What happens to humanity when we leave Earth behind? To understand this properly, you need to understand the film's context. It was released at the very beginning of the 1950s, an era marked by the white heat of technological progress. In less than a generation, for instance, mankind had gone from biplanes to jet planes. Penicillin was changing the face of medicine. Nuclear power was promising a future of limitless energy. And computers, those massive, blinking, room-sized brains, were starting to hint at things nobody had ever conceived of. It must have seemed like the future was arriving faster than anybody could keep track of. In that whirlwind, space travel doesn't seem far-fetched. It seems inevitable. The film reflects that energy, that optimism, but it also warns us as well. Because the real climax of Destination Moon isn't the landing, it isn't the flag, it's the moment they all realise they ain't got enough fuel and they can't get home. So somebody has got to stay behind. And who volunteers? Well, it's Joe, the mechanic, the man who just wanted to fix the engines and get home. No fears, no fuss, he just gets on with it. He just does the maths and he offers up his own life, not as some grand gesture, but a necessary step. It's worth remembering that in the original script, as I said earlier on, he was supposed to be left behind. He was supposed to sacrifice himself, and that was the end of the film. That was the price of the moon. The studio softened it, but the message stayed. Sacrifice is part of the journey. They don't just shrug it off and say, sorry mate. But here's what really elevates this moment, because the crew won't accept it. They dig in, they do the maths again, they strip the ship down even more. They fight for him, because his life matters, not just practically, but morally. And that's where the film reveals its real heart. Destination Moon is about technological progress, but not blind progress. It's not saying go fast and damn the consequences. It says we're going somewhere amazing, but we've got to stay human while we travel. Across George Pal's body of work, this theme of humanity keeps on recurring. For instance, in When Worlds Collide, they go to great lengths to explain to the viewer just why humanity is worth saving in the first place. And in The Time Machine, they explore at length just what happens when we lose that humanity. In Destination Moon, it's about the need to carry that humanity with us as we journey into space. Joe's not important because he's clever or he's strong. He's important because he cares, because he's willing to sacrifice, and because the others care enough about him to stop him. And if that sounds sentimental, then good. Because for all of its technical realism, Destination Moon is a deeply emotional film. Not overtly, not with swelling strings or James Stewart monologuing over it, but it's emotionally honest in that old-fashioned do your duty kind of way. The kind of emotion that don't ask for applause. There's something almost mythic about that, this idea that we're not just setting off into the stars with rockets, but we have to bring the human spirit as well. That's why the ambiguity at the end of the film really matters. Because the story doesn't end with like a hero's return or something. It sort of ends on a bit of a cliffhanger, because you don't actually see him land safely on Earth. It finishes with a cliffhanger because, well, that's where we were as a species in 1950. Mid-leap forward, and unsure if we'd actually stick the landing. The film knows that space isn't just about distance, it's about meaning. And once you leave Earth, the question becomes, well, who are we? Who are we really without it? The film's final scenes reinforce all of this. As I mentioned a moment ago, they're still in the rocket, they're on their way home, but you don't actually see them land. The story deliberately ends on a question mark that speaks volumes. Our journey isn't over, our mission isn't complete. And if we're going to survive out there, on the moon, on Mars, we're going to need more than just technology. We're going to need our humanity. That's the bit no one talks about with this film. Yes, it is unashamedly patriotic. And yes, it's a giant advert for the space age. But it's also a reminder, we can build all the rockets we want, but if we leave our humanity behind, we're just robots in spacesuits. Joe's sacrifice in this film, and their refusal to accept it, that's Power's way of sending a very powerful but very simple message. And it's this: you can go bravely, you can go boldly, but don't go coldly. So let's put all the cards on the table. Destination Moon is undeniably Cold War propaganda, but that doesn't make it bad, that just makes it honest about what it is. This is a film that makes you want to believe in something, progress, courage, and the power of human will. It's a pitch, it's a presentation, it's a flag in the ground. But here's the thing, because it is more than just all of that. It's actually a well-made film. The script, while heavy in technical dialogue, doesn't treat the audience like they're idiots. It trusts them to keep up. The visual effects are absolutely groundbreaking for their time. The pacing has that rare 1950s rhythm to it, slow enough to let the ideas land, yet quick enough to let you know it's going somewhere. And the performances, solid. They're not flashy, but they're believable. Even the structure of the film's pretty clever as well. It opens with political friction, yet it somehow ends with ambiguity. We don't actually see him land back on Earth, but that's not a mistake, that's a statement, because this story isn't about getting home, it's about taking a leap. And the characters, they're not just mouthpieces for ideology, they're people. They wrestle with fear, ego and responsibility. They make hard choices, they carry weight. Good propaganda shouts, a good film listens. Destination Moon somehow manages to do both, and it says America must go to the moon, but it also says go peacefully. Take the scientists, take the engineers, take the dreamers, take the best of humanity, take those willing to sacrifice. So no, it ain't just a good piece of propaganda, it's also a good film, and it is a film that's worth revisiting, not just for what it says about the Cold War, but also what it says about us. So what do you think? Is Destination Moon a cinematic landmark? Or is it just a sleek Cold War message? Or something in between? A relic perhaps of a time when urgency and optimism walked hand in hand? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because I really want to know what this film means to you guys. Does it still speak to you? Or is it just a museum piece? And let's have it right, if you've made it this far, chances are you've got opinions on the matter. So go on, you know you wanna, leave a comment for me. And if you really like what I do, hit the like button. And if you still think that classic sci-fi's got something to say, and you know somebody else that does, why don't you share the video with them as well? And if you haven't already, subscribe. Every interaction I have with you guys really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.